fail, a generator will fail, a line will fall. But the difference between your ability not to interrupt services is now defined on a generation front per spinning reserve. That is to say, if we had 15% above, that would be almost maybe around 350 or 400. If you lose a generator in, say, Olkaria, of 100 megawatts, or you lose Lake Turkana, the wind power in Sarima, the moment it gets off the circuit, or maybe let me explain in layman terms, for a network to remain, there are two things that have to be maintained. Number one is frequency, and frequency, the Kenyan frequency is 50 hertz. And then you have to match the demand and generation. That is, you must be able to generate the power that is equivalent to what the people require. So assume at this point, you are generating 2300 and 2300 is being consumed. If a generator at that point, say 300 megawatts, gets out, say collapses, so that would mean on the demand side you have 2300, on the supply side you have 2000. Immediately the frequency is going to drop. And unless you manage it so that it doesn't drop below 49 point something. Actually, there are load shedding schemes. That's actually what we call load shedding, where you throw off. It's almost like a train. One engine has collapsed. So for you to save for it not to stall, you start removing some of the wagons off the train so that you balance the power, and that is exactly what would ordinarily happen. So you would need to very quickly throw off some load so that you balance, so that the demand is 2,000 and then the generation is 2,000. The other one now, which is the better one, is you have a spinning reserve of 3,000, of the 300. You lose this one, the spinning reserve, the reserve that you add, just rises up and replaces what you have just lost. The network is maintained. So those are some of the dynamics where I'm saying that where we are as a country, we have no spinning reserve. So that is to say, you lose energy generation, automatic, you have to load shed part of the country. That is, people will call it a blackout. Some will call it maybe kuna blackout happen. In fact, there are some parts of the country at times they have been frequently load managed because of certain constraints in the grid, but they themselves think it's blackouts. It's not actually blackouts, it's load management. So we do require that. But coming back to the IPPs, Macharia, the last we brought on board is a 35 megawatt geothermal plant. It is the cheapest in the country for geothermal. It's the cheapest. It's an IPP, it's cheaper than Kenya. And indeed, there are two others which are coming on board, maybe just for the sake of information. We are buying it they are paying GDC 2 cents, and 4.9 is what goes to that developer. So in total, it is 6.9 US cents. That is the cheapest for geothermal. There are two more for IPPs again, not Kenyan, for IPPs which are coming at 7 cents, the same site which is in Olkaria. So I think the commitment that we can actually give to the public, and indeed that's actually why this engagement is really useful, because for as long as there is so much suspicion about IPPs, we are going to be resisting, and the public is going to be resisting it, while it is the medicine they really require. You can imagine somebody is sick, and you want to give him some injection, and he's being told that guy wants to kill you. Do not accept that injection. So the situation is going to be more risky, but the person is not willing to receive what would actually be answering to their treatment. I think the commitment we can have is that for all the future IPPs, whatever cost they are coming up with is going to be quite reasonable, and it's not going to be exploitative as it happened in the past and in the sad past, which possibly a number of Kenyans have still remained with that. So in a sense, what I'm actually saying is that the current IPPs, we are not going to allow any cost or anything that is more expensive than what it should actually be. Because the tariff, there is a process, which I did mention before, which you even arrive at the tariff for each technology. That is, if it comes to geothermal, there is a range. If it comes to solar, there is a particular range. On the turnaround for KPLC, maybe one of the things that I could answer here, and this is a very good question, and I think you are representing a number of Kenyans who really, I think when we announced our 30.8 billion profit for last financial year, there are a number who really thought that these were fake. I mean, it cannot happen overnight. And then again, of course, we did announce 9.97 billion half-year profit. I think we may have reduced. If there were, say, 10,000 doubters, by the time we came to half-year, maybe they reduced by another 7, maybe we still have a few. But the whole issue, and if you look at what has really happened, there are a number of interventions we have done. One of the interventions is that, of course, we've connected more customers. If you look at the number of customers that time and now, the number of customers have increased. Another issue is that if you looked at the results for the previous financial year, that is 2022-23 financial year, you would notice, if you look at the financials, that we had actually made 19 billion profit. The profit for 2022-23 was going to be 19 billion. But the finance costs was 23 billion. This is mainly, maybe in layman terms, let me put it this way. If you look at our obligations in terms of paying our generators, paying for the generation that we buy, and repaying some of the on-land loans, because KPLC still has some on-land loans which are used to undertake certain projects. In dollar terms, it's about $1 billion. Let's use $1 billion for illustration. So that when you entered the year 2022, June, the dollar rate, I think that time was about, it was about 118. It was about 118 shillings to the dollar. So if you looked at our debts position as of June 2022, you would have said we owe 118 billion. Now, come to 2023 June, the dollar had gone to around 142. So without doing anything, even if you had paid, you would now appear to be owing 142 billion. These are the financial requirements. I think it should be IFRS 16, which requires for you to reflect the value of loans according to the exchange of that particular time. So it then appeared, even without doing anything, that our debt had increased from 118 billion to 142. And if you now look at that, this is what wiped away all the 19 billion profit that we had made and pushed us to negative 4 billion. So the only difference now when we came to this other financial year is the currency was fairly stable. So yes, we were impacted a bit by finance costs. I think it came to around 4 billion. So instead of being hit by around 23 billion in this other year, the hit was just about 4 billion shillings. And I think members of the press, you would actually recall that this past financial year, the dollar exchange rate has just been oscillating around the same place, 128, 129, it has just been around there. So by that currency stopping, then the real fundamentals now become quite evident. And even another issue that if you had wanted even to check more, is that we have even reduced in terms of the debt payments. We are almost current in a number of repay, or rather even paying some of the IPPs. Because during this period, we had serious challenges. One of them was the fact that we had a lot of Kenya shillings, and we could not even buy the dollars. Yes, the dollars, they would be told you it's 160, 162, but we couldn't even get those dollars to be able to pay the IPPs. And maybe on a different and also related note, one of the things that did happen for KPLC, say even if we were to start from 2020, is the fact that really financially we are not doing well. And one of the things that they had to seek for was a moratorium in terms of even repaying the on-land loans. Let me assure the members of the public that when the first moratorium ended in 2022, another one was requested for, which expired in 2024 June. From 2024 July, we have actually been now repaying the debt. So that in itself is a very clear demonstration that there are a number of things which have changed. I may not go into a lot of detail, but we are definitely revamping the network, dealing with some of the challenges that used to lead to longer outages, and a contribution of all these issues and increase and focus on efficiency. And a number of them, of course, also going to smart meters, increasing more of the prepaid, doing more inspections. There are a number of factors which have all contributed to this turnaround. And I do know that, yes, even as we head to the month of June, when we'll be announcing our results, I hope to have cleared all the doubters in terms of them doubting our financial position as a company. So I think, but if there is still more engagement that we need to engage more, so where we can go into more detail, I would really want to welcome that. On the issue of some customers getting exaggerated bills, we are really open. If there are such instances, we are willing to deal with and be more responsive. You have our commitment, members of the press. You have, and indeed to the general public. We are really committed to seeing our satisfied customers. And we are so committed to that. And the message we pass from all the way up to down is customer is number one. And we really value our customers. On the image issue, I think that is something that we are really dealing with. But we do know, like you commented, that our image is going to be better, more and more better as we deal with the challenges in the network and as customers get satisfactory services. But a number of, one of the interventions that possibly we could encourage the members of the public, because that also does contribute to them getting some bills in a particular way, is that especially for the postpaid customers, the meter readers have schedules on a monthly basis, and they will go, they find the place is locked. A number of times they are forced to estimate. Then again, they keep estimating. On the day now they come, so they may be getting a bill of say 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. But because it's an estimate, the actual consumption is not known. By the time now the person comes and actually gets the actual reading, it may be the units consumed is much more than they had been estimating. So on that particular month, the bill would actually appear so exaggerated. But one of the interventions, and indeed we want to encourage the members of the public, there is something that we provide for postpaid meter, which is called self-reading. And once you subscribe for self-reading, on a particular date, you can be reading your meter and you share with us. When you share with us, it's going to be billing you, and you are not going to have a challenge where possibly at one point you've been paying a low amount and then it increases. Those are some of the issues which I know most of our meter readers have been facing in terms of them using estimates instead of the actual readings. Maybe Kevin, then I can.
There's a question on wailing. What is the best practice on wailing charges?
No, I have not. You know, first of all, when we talk about wayleaves, in terms of, if you look at the road infrastructure, it is always planned that the road is not going to occupy the entire stretch. There is a place which is left for wayleaf services. This can be water pipes, electricity, and all these other utilities. That one is provided in that particular manner. I have not really scanned across the, what is the global practice, but definitely the only thing I can possibly speak to is if it was to be implemented. If we were to be charged, say the 200 shillings per meter for every place it traverses, the impact would actually be massive in terms of. Now, I think besides, Mashari, I think you did comment that when you look at your, the breakdown of what you've paid, you saw a number of things which are encroaching there. Now, if the wayleaves were going to be paid for, I think that may be the biggest singular item you'll actually be able to see in your bill. And so that if you had been paying about 5,000 per month or 10,000 per month, possibly that would actually more than, it may go to around 16 or 17,000. So that is just the impact if that was actually meant to be payable. But it is something definitely we can establish and then we can reward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we have a roaming mic, which we are going, and we need to agree how many minutes do we give this Q&A? We are meant to be out of here at 10:30, right? Now I can see it's 10, so we have 30 minutes. I think let's plan to wrap it up, the Q&A session, in 15 minutes. 15 minutes is okay, sawa. So keep it short and simple. And I want to ask the first question. In 2015, the International Finance Corporation embarked on a study. Yeah, they hired a financial advisor in the name of Tetra Tech to study the system losses at Kenya Power. And they came up with a report that said that at that time, system losses were estimated at about 18% of the entire power transmitted. when I look at the current statistics that you gave in December of 2024, this has gone up by about 23.65%. I would want to find out, despite significant investment in renewing and, of course, modernizing your infrastructure, why do we still have system losses going up? I would want to hear that. The next question goes to... Yes.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Wanyama Chebuse. First, to Apekongole Kenya Power, they have done the nice work. Honestly, this power, they could be experiencing teething challenges like let's applaud them. When Engineer Siror took over, there's a lot of hope in you, engineer, if you don't know. But then I was still in the newsroom, and there's a lot of hope in you, especially in turning around Kenya Power fortunes, in terms of even looking at the HR practices at Kenya Power. But as we are talking, speaking as an investigative journalist, as we are talking, the employment biodata at Kenya Power does not represent the face of Kenya. Aside of that, 40.3% of the employees at Kenya Power are dominated by 2 tribes. So that the rest come in there. That in every 10 employees, at least you would get 7 of these 2 tribes and the rest of the Kenyans. What has happened? Why are you not throwing in light there?
Thank you.
No. The second one. Yeah.
All right, please go.
The second one is about, there is an ambitious program that Kenya Power has started called internship program. This internship program codenamed Retain, Attract and Retain. This was meant to be effected by the Kenya Power Board. But at some point, some opaqueness came, and the contract has been slowly and secretly been given to an individual to effect this program. People are concerned. Why is it that there's a lot of opaqueness in Kenya Power, especially on such an ambitious program?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. The MD, my name is Topista Nabusoba. The MD indicated that the ownership of KPLC is 50.1 by government and 49.9 by private entities. Is this the ideal? And my question therefore is, shouldn't the public, which is also the consumers, also have a stake in the ownership? Thank you.
Very good. Waka.
Thank you. My name is Tom Jalio from the Star. I'd also like to give credit where it is due. Where I'm from, the power problems used to be endemic, but in the past year or so, they've significantly reduced. Be that as it may, last month we had a blackout for 3 days, and as Moshada Gaito pointed out, also, I can mention it's highly resisted. It's in the heart of Nairobi. And I was calling customer care, and they told me that is at night, there's only one emergency team, and it's been deployed to Karen. So I'm wondering if in the heart of Nairobi it takes that long for such an issue to be resolved. What about someone who is in the middle of nowhere? So the second question is about compensation. There's a bill that was proposed in Parliament, I think last year. The other month I had it moved to another stage. So I was wondering what is your take on that bill? Because it proposes compensating consumers for losses incurred whenever there's a power failure, which I think from where I sit is a good idea, because even in estates, when you're coming home from work, you want to cook, you have food you've left in the fridge and it goes to waste. And there are many people who are working remotely nowadays, and also businesses based in estates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, give it to Akaba, and then I think the MD is going to respond. Let's avoid clapping at this point. We'll get to the point where we'll clap.
Quite a lot of sensitive issues, of course, that touch on people's lives daily. My question is about culture. especially because a lot of the questions that have been raised up to now deal with culture, the way people behave, the way things are done, and it raises the question of trust. While you've spoken for the good part of an hour, a lot of that material is technical and a lot of people will not understand it. So for the public, they simply want to be able to trust you and the organization to do what's right and to deliver service affordably, conveniently, and in ways which will not offer stress. So my question is, what's the organization doing to build trust, especially knowing in the past that this has been severely eroded, as you can see in the questions that Tom has asked? And secondly, what does the company do to embody a uniform service culture so that people can expect some sort of level of service? Everyone has a Kenya Power story, most of it negative. So what efforts have been put in place to address these sorts of concerns from those two spaces?
Thank you.
Culture and trust.
Very good. Thank you. I think let's give the MD the opportunity to respond to those 5 questions, and then I will pick it up from there. We'll have another round of 5. Mr. MD, you can respond on the issues of diversity, opaque in hiring, company ownership structure, compensation, long turnaround time, as well as building a company that's built on trust and culture.
Thank you so much. Let me begin with the last question. What is the company doing to embody uniform service culture, the building of trust, and I think there was also the issue of, yes. So one of the things that possibly, and this can actually explain even from the ready kilowatt time up to now, is that for you to have a strong, reliable network, there are a number of things that need to happen at the same time. If you look, I think you remember the continuum between generation, then there is transmission, and then there is distribution. What has happened over the past 10 years is a very ambitious growth in terms of connecting more customers. I think if you look at the customer growth, just for the last 10 years alone, it's almost exponential. We started with, I think, under 2 million, and in a very short while, we are actually approaching 10 million customers. But if you look at the transmission space and the medium voltage level, there is very little which has been happening there. So that you've really expanded the network to be very wide. But at the middle here, there needs to have been some investment. But I would not fault anyone, because I think at times the ambition to ensure people are connected is a very noble objective. But that did happen with the fact that more of the investment was directed towards connecting those customers, and little investment was actually done on the transmission space. So that even if we are to answer to the question of penalties, for example, for the quality of service, the issue would be, is the state of your network in a position to guarantee that? And I think my answer from where I sit right now is no for some areas. Because what is the practice? Let me just explain. What is the practice? If you want to provide 100% reliability, what are some of the measures that you do? The measure that you do is you ensure all the customers are supplied with redundant links. What do I mean by redundant? Right now, most of our lines are radio. I don't want to sound technical, but let me just put it in layman terms. You have this one line or one feeder leaving a substation, and it goes in one direction. Now, all the customers are on that feeder. That is the ones which are being supplied there. In the event this feeder, any interruption or a tree collapses on it, all the customers downstream are affected. So how would one correct that? You provide what is called redundancy. What does it mean? In place where you had one line, you provide other lines, so that if one collapses, the same customer is supplied from the other direction. What does that call for? Investment. So that, yes, as it were, one of the things that we are, and this we are actually doing in Nairobi, there are some places now where we are creating these redundant links and the likes. But for the larger network and the larger expansion, the resources have actually been directed to connect with these customers. But from where we are as a company, the thing that we then do is to ensure all these radio lines, the trace is cleared. If there are some loose connections, those ones are dealt with, and that's actually the current program that we have. So in a sense, yes, we are getting there. But the issue would be, there are certain areas where by virtue of the infrastructure which has already been installed, we can guarantee a certain level of service. But for other areas, we still have that particular challenge. Then the other issue, which I know I did mention, even in the course of this, is the issue of what the public is also doing that is not assisting us to provide this quality service. One of them, of course, is the issue of vandalism. We still do have areas especially in this city, where we have illegal connections. People who are just possibly, especially at night, they may hook onto the LV line, and it interrupts the customers in that area. Of course, this would not be an issue really which is emanating from KPLC per se. It's by virtue of the customers who are in certain parts of the country. So yes, in terms of building the trust, I think that is one thing, and I think my top management would actually repeat the same, that if there is one thing that we have really been focusing on, and it is the issue of the quality of service and the way we respond to our customers. And I really want to believe that if you are to compare us, maybe 2 years ago and now, we may have improved. We are not quite there. We are not, definitely I own up, we are not quite there. But we are on a journey towards it. And we have been very stern. Those of our employees who we find have errant behavior, we've normally been willing to assist them to exit the company. And maybe even because we are not very evil, we even suggest to them other business ventures they can go and try, such as going to grow maize or coffee or their likes, even as they actually exit the company. Tom Jalio, yes, you indicated that, yes, the quality of service in your area improved, and I'm happy about that. In due time, most of the others, I think when we have the next engagement, Kevin, I think we can run a comparison. Maybe one of the polls you should be conducting is how is the quality of service in where you stay. Then we can be comparing as we have further engagement. Because I can assure you, be assured,